Today, we are looking at a truly fascinating intersection of modern data analytics and traditional community outreach. We're going to be examining a really comprehensive June 2026 demographic analysis put together for the River Chase Church of Christ. And what is just absolutely captivating about the strategy is how it takes incredibly precise, micro-targeted intelligence and uses it to pinpoint specific community pain points. From there, they've crafted this highly sophisticated, multi-layered campaign to literally meet people exactly where they are. Here's a quick look at our agenda for today. We'll start by unpacking their data-driven mission, then explore how they reach out to distinct groups, like professionals, youth, immigrants, and seniors. Finally, we'll see how all of those micro-targeted campaigns funnel into one massive macro community event, all tied together by a precise 12-month master plan. Section 1, a data-driven mission. Okay, let's dive into this. We're talking about the overarching philosophy driving this entire 7-part strategy. It really all starts with this one fundamental question. How does a traditional organization adapt to a rapidly changing city? Hoover, Alabama is in the midst of a major transition. We're talking rapid growth, shifting economic identities, rising diversity, and honestly, some pretty serious emerging social crises. The data shows an institution that realizes a one-size-fits-all approach, that just doesn't cut it anymore. They have to use modern intelligence to actually understand the unique kind of fragmented realities of their neighbors. Now check out the precision here. Based entirely on that intelligence report, they sliced up the population and designed 7 very distinct campaigns. You can really see the strategy at play. They aren't just casting a wide net for adults. No, they are explicitly targeting affluent, unchurched professionals aged 30 to 48 or parents of struggling youth. Every single campaign name, every target profile, it's a direct, calculated response to a specific, measurable demographic reality found right there in their 10-mile radius. And this is where it gets really interesting, because while the targets are incredibly diverse, the actual mechanics underneath are universal. Every single campaign operates on this deliberate 6-step marketing and relationship continuum. They don't just expect someone to magically jump from seeing a Facebook ad right into the middle of their community. It's a journey. They walk them through awareness, generate some interest, establish a super low pressure first contact, build a relationship, and then eventually that leads to conversion and discipleship. It is a textbook, highly effective relationship building funnel. Section 2, reaching professionals and skeptics. Let's move into the real world and see how this actually works for affluent professionals and the spiritually skeptical in the Hoover area. So the demographic data reveals a pretty stark contrast. Within this 10-mile radius, there's a highly educated professional class. We're looking at a median household income of over $109,000. But, and this is the big but, the data also shows that despite all this outward material wealth, there are massive rates of internal struggle. Anxiety, purposelessness, doubt. Their Something More Is Out There campaign addresses this exact gap. It speaks directly to those folks who have achieved everything culture said would make them happy, only to find themselves thinking, is this really it? So how are they reaching this specific crowd? It is incredibly sophisticated. They're using geofenced social media ads, which means these ads are digitally restricted to specific high-income homeowner zip codes. They're dropping 15-second pre-roll ads on Spotify, specifically on business and NPR podcasts. And for the more skeptical, de-churched folks, get this. They're running a YouTube series literally called Why I Left Church. And they're even hosting a moderated gripe night where people can just air their frustrations without any defensiveness. It's such an honest, doubt-welcoming approach for a skeptical, highly educated audience. Section 3, the youth mental health crisis. Transitioning away from those affluent professionals, the data pivots to something much, much heavier. The most urgent finding in the entire report. Let that number sink in. 50. The data reveals that the state of Alabama ranks dead last, 50th in the entire nation when it comes to youth mental health access. This is absolutely crucial to understand. This isn't just some broad national talking point. This is a localized, right now emergency that the data dropped right on this organization's doorstep. To put that into perspective and bring it closer to home, the report points out that Hoover High School has nearly 3,000 students. And shockingly, 58% of youth who experienced depression in the past year got absolutely zero care. No help at all. This specific data point was so incredibly severe, it actually sparked the creation of a local nonprofit called Hoover Together in 2025. And for the church, it completely drives a massive 2-pronged outreach strategy aimed at a community dealing with enormous anxiety. Their response here is just a masterclass in strategic empathy. Think about it. For the parents, they roll out Raising Resilient Kids workshops and a monthly support group literally called Parents in the Trenches, partnering with licensed counselors to give real practical help. Simultaneously, for the teens, they're hitting Instagram and TikTok with highly targeted ads talking about anxiety and loneliness, inviting them to something called The Table, which is a weekly, super low pressure safe space. They are meeting both generations exactly where it hurts the most. Section 4, Connecting Immigrants and Seniors. Moving right along, let's look at two totally distinct demographic groups that actually share one really profound commonality: structural isolation. The first group here is the booming international community. The data highlights that Hoover's foreign-born population accelerated to almost 9% in a single year. That's a massive jump. And looking at the breakdown, the Hispanic population is primarily Mexican at 51%, along with a really large Central American community. We're talking about first-generation immigrants dealing with intense language barriers and cultural displacement. And that exact need for community drives their A Place Where You Belong campaign. So how do you build a bridge there? You do it by removing practical barriers. For immigrants, it means offering free weekday evening ESL classes and hosting a huge international food festival. For seniors, our other isolated group, many of whom are widowed or just can't drive anymore, it means creating a volunteer driver network, partnering up with local funeral homes to host grief groups, and showing up regularly at places like River Chase Village. Rattling off these tactics, you really see how solving simple logistical problems builds an incredible amount of community trust. Section 5, the grand outreach event. All right, we've looked at all these targeted micro campaigns, but now let's zoom out. How do you tie the whole shebang together? Well, here is the strategic brilliance of the plan. They created a 7th macro campaign simply called Come Home Hoover. The entire goal here is to take all 6 of those highly segmented groups, the affluent skeptics, the hurting teens, the anxious parents, the immigrants, the isolated seniors, and bring them all together under one unified invitation. They know Hoover is a city kind of searching for its identity right now, and they're positioning this event, potentially at a huge venue like the Hoover Met, as a place for the entire city to reunite. And the scale of this marketing blitz? It's huge. We are talking about a premium direct mailer hitting anywhere from 60 to 80,000 households in those final weeks. They're layering that with multi-platform digital ads, each one specifically tailored to those demographics we just talked about. It all culminates in a zero-pressure Saturday outdoor community festival, which then leads directly into a Sunday come-home service, fully equipped with translation and childcare. It's just a masterfully orchestrated funnel. Section 6, the 12-month master plan. Because, obviously, a vision like this requires some serious logistical execution. Let's see how this rolls out. Walking through this chronological roadmap, the pacing makes perfect sense. Months 1 and 2, that's all about building infrastructure, launching the digital ads, getting the ESL teams prepped and ready. By months 3 and 4, the micro events are firing on all cylinders. The parent workshops, the youth nights, all of this momentum builds and builds until month 6, the Come Home Hoover grand event. But notice the end of the timeline here. The grand event is not the finish line. Months 9 through 12 are entirely dedicated to deepening those new relationships. The big event is literally just the top of the funnel for long-term community building. I want to read a quote directly from the source material that I think just perfectly summarizes their core philosophy. The demographic data does not change the message. It shapes how the timeless message is communicated to specific people in this specific community at this specific moment. That is such a powerful reminder of how traditional institutions can blend modern analytics with their mission, not to change who they are, but to make absolutely sure they are relevant to the people living right next door. So what does this all mean for us? What's your takeaway here? I want you to think about your own city for a second. How are the traditional institutions in your community, whether that's a community center, a nonprofit, or a place of worship, how are they adapting to changing demographics? Are they using data to actively identify and solve local pain points? Or are they just kind of relying on strategies from a decade ago? It leaves us with a truly fascinating question right at the intersection of data, sociology, and community outreach. We live in an era where we have more information about our neighbors' struggles than ever before in human history. So when the data reveals our deepest community needs, whether that's a crisis in youth mental health, senior isolation, or just a general search for meaning, who will step up to answer the call?